Welcome theory learners. Welcome new learners and welcome back to the people who have studied with me before. This is Elementary Rudiments Music Theory. We are in level 2. The material in this course will cover the things that you would need to know if you're taking the Royal Conservatory of Music's Intermediate Theory exam. And so this is Module 1. We're in Week 1. And a couple of quick reviews for those of you who were here with me before, and for the new learners, remember if you're looking at this on a small screen, blow it up. There's a lot of things in music theory, a lot of music moving parts, so you want to be able to see what's going on the screens. And also, this is a video recording, so there will be parts where there are questions for consideration. Don't forget to pause, give yourself a little bit of time to think about it. And then when you start your recording back up again, you'll be able to see the answers. And so we're going to start off Week 1, Module 1, with a review of key signatures in the circle of fifths. Remember that you can do your homework after each module, or you can watch all of the modules and then do your homework before you scan it and turn it in to me. The choice is yours. I would suggest that you work on your homework before your study hall so that if you have questions on your homework, you'll be prepared to ask them. If you haven't started for some reason, still come to study hall because there will be questions asked by other students that will benefit you as well. There are usually, as a reminder, between 4 and 5 modules a week, so be prepared for that and time your learning accordingly. Let's jump right in here to review our key signatures and our circle of fifths. All right, let's take just a minute here and do a key signature review to start us off. For some of you, you may have taken your first music theory course just last year. Other people, it might have been a couple of years. This would be a good way to kind of get back into the swing of music theory and review a little bit. Now last year we learned that the order of the key signatures is always the same, and we used a phrase to remember what our key signature order would be. See if you can take just a minute and remember what the phrase was that we had used for sharps, to remember the order of sharps. We learned that if we memorize the phrase Father Charles goes down and ends battle, that we would know the order of the sharps when it comes to writing key signatures. And being able to write key signatures will help us to identify what key a piece is in as well. So this phrase represents the order of the sharps. Father Charles goes down and ends battle. And by following it, we can take the first letter in each of the words, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, E sharp, and B sharp, and know that that is the order of the sharps. We also learned that when you are writing the sharps on the staff, in that order, we will zigzag. You'll either start up high and zig down and zag up and zig down and zag up as you go through and write them on the staff, or you'll start low and then you'll zig up and zag down and zig up and zag down in order to write your sharps and your flats on the staff. The bass clef always follows the same pattern as the treble clef, so we write the sharps in or flats in on the treble clef first, and then we go down and we follow the same pattern on the bass clef. Symbols, meaning the sharps or the flats themselves, must always be written on the staff. No fair using ledger lines. We can use the space at the very top of the staff or the space at the very bottom of the staff, either the bass or the treble clef, but no ledger lines when it comes to writing the sharps and flats on the staff, and that will become important for you this year. The other thing we have to think of is that sharps start up high. Well, why does that matter? Because if you're putting an F sharp on the treble clef staff, you could write it either on the top line, or you could write it in the first space, the lowest space at the bottom of the treble clef. And so we need to know where to put it. And they always start high. So you're going to think of maybe pricking your finger. If you pricked your finger, you would lift it up and away, right? So think sharp, start up, start high, and then you would zig and zag. And so you'd start up high, and then you'd come down to the C, go up to the G, come down to the D, and so on and so forth. And we'll talk about that A here this year as we learn the last three. Last year we learned the first four sharps and flats. We're going to add the last three on this year. Right now we're just reviewing. But remember, we're going to follow whatever we do in the treble clef, we're going to do in the bass clef. Now, when you read the phrase backwards, it represents the order of the flats, right? So if we say battle ends and down goes Charles' father, that's the order of the flats. Now flats, or different sharps, they start low. So you're going to write your first flat as low on the staff, and then you're going to go up, right? So it's going to be low, and then you're going to zig up, and then zag down, and then zig up, and then zag down. The way to remember that is that if you get a flat tire on your car sinks, right? It gets lower. So think of it that way. Flat car on your tire, you're going to start lower, and then you're going to go up, right? Your first flat's going to be the low one. So there's your B flat, and then you go up to the E flat. You're going to come down to the A flat, up to the D flat, and so on and so forth as you finish out your flats in both the bass and the treble clef. So we learned that we have to stay on the staff, no ledger lines, and last year we learned the first four sharps and the first four flats and what keys they were associated with. So here's our first four sharps, and the bass clef of course follows that same pattern as the treble clef. So we're going to start at F sharp, go down to C, go up to A, and then come down to D. No ledger lines, that's going to be important this year. And on our flats, we learned that we're going to start low and then zigzag up. No tricks here. You just start on the B, and that has to be the low one. So you go up to the E, down to the A, up to the D. And then the same thing in the bass clef. Start on the low B, go up to the E, down to the A, and up to the B. Let's look at that order again. Sharps, F sharp, down to C, up to G, down to D. Bass clef, start on F, down to C, up to G, down to D. And the flats, start on B, up to E, down to A, up to D. And in the bass clef, start on the B, up to the E, down to the A, and up to the D. So even if we know how to write our sharps or flats on the staff, oftentimes it would ask you what key a piece of music is in, and so we would need to know how to figure that out as well. With our sharps, we had learned the last go round that the last sharp in the key signature leads to the key itself. It's going to be your cue to what key the piece is actually in. So to determine the key signature, we're going to find the last sharp in the key signature. We're going to look at it on a piano keyboard because it's the easiest place to visualize music theory. So we're going to find it on the piano keyboard. Then we're going to fall off the last sharp, and you'll land on the key that is the key signature for the piece. So this has an F sharp. If we're standing on the F sharp and we were going to fall off of it, and we're always going to fall to the right, if we fall off, we're going to land on a G. This piece with one sharp in it is written in the key of G. Let's look at another one. So what key is this? Here we've got three sharps, right? And our top sharp, our last sharp, I should say, the last one, the furthest one to the furthest to the right, is a G sharp. If we're standing on the G sharp and we fall off of it to the right, we land on and A. This is in the key of A major. Now how about this one? I'm going to give you just a second. Think about it. See if you can get it, and then we're going to walk through there. Remember, the first thing you're going to look at is the sharp that is the furthest to the right, the last one that was written on the staff. That's a D sharp in this case. So if we stand on D sharp and we fall off of it, we're in the key of E major. Let's check out the flats. The rules are a little bit different here with the flats, remember. To remember the key signature when you have flats, you have to back up one. I always like to think of the fact that the flat looks like a B, and so I can think back up one, right? So here we're looking at two flats. The last flat, the one that was written last, the one that is furthest to the right, is an E flat. So now, if we back up a flat, we're on B flat. Back up one, this piece is in the key of B flat. What key is this one in? We've got three flats here, B flat, E flat, and A flat. And if we back up one from the last one here, we're in the key of E flat. And now we've got four flats. And if we back up a flat from the last one here, now we're in the key of A flat. All right, so let's take a look at some examples here, give you a little bit of practice. We're going to look at the example that comes up on the treble clef, and we're going to decide what the major key is that's associated with the key signature that's presented. And here, our first one, we have two sharps. I'll give you just a minute to think about it. Remember, you can use your pause key. Give yourself a little bit of extra time. All right, so we know with sharps that if we're standing on the sharp itself and we fall off, that it's going to tell us what key we're in. There's a C sharp there, so if we were standing on a C sharp and we fell off of it, we would land on a D. So this would be in the key of D major. Here's another one for you. Take a look at this one. Here we've got three flats. I'll give you a hint. Remember, flats look like a B. You got to back up one to figure out which key signature is. Okay, in this example, our last flat is an A flat. If we were to back up one, we would be on E flat. And so this is in the key of E flat major. And here's another one. We've got four sharps this time. What key are we in? So our last sharp is a D sharp. And if we were standing on a D sharp and we were to fall off of it, we would land on an E. So this is in the key of E major. Here's another one for us. This time we've got four flats. Remember the backup rule. Okay, so our last flat is a D flat. If we back up one, we see that our flat is an A flat, so this would be in the key of A flat major. And here we have three sharps. And our last sharp here in this example is a G sharp. So if we were standing on a G sharp and we fell off, we would be on an A. This would be in the key of A major. So now we've kind of done our key signature review, right? We've only used the keys that we learned in our first level of music theory, and we will get in and we will learn the other keys. But before we do, let's just take a look at how do we figure this out? Like, why are these key signatures in the order that they're in? And this might be another way for some people to remember kind of how the order goes, or to put it all together. Music theory is very logical and very mathematical, which surprising because I'm not a big math bug, but it's interesting. We can see how they determined the order of the sharps and the flats. So let's take a look. We can do that using the circle of fifths. And it's going to help us see the mathematical logic behind how sharps and flats are added to the order. So if we start on a C, which is the key with no sharps or flats, right? We're starting on C, there's no sharps or flats here. If we go up a fifth, we find that we are on a G. And the key of G has one sharp, which is an F sharp. There's our Father, right? Father Charles, the key of G has an F sharp. Now if we go up a fifth from our G, we land on a D. And we know that the key of D has two sharps. It has the F sharp that we already had. We have to keep the F sharp because we've already had it. We cannot change the order. So we keep the F sharp, and then we add the next sharp in our rhyme, Charles, Father Charles. So now we have an F sharp and a C sharp. The second key, as we go up 5 each time, the second place we land has two sharps. And if we go up another fifth, we're going to land on the key of A, which has 3 sharps. They are F sharp and C sharp. We go right on to the next word in our rhyme, goes, and add that on. And so the key of A has an F sharp, a C sharp, and a G sharp. So as you can see, every time, and you can test this out on your keyboard at home, please go and do that. Every time you go up, you start on the key of C, and every time you go up a fifth, you add on another sharp. Just make sure you go in your order. Father Charles goes down, and just keep going up. And every fifth that you go up, you're going to add on another sharp until you wrap right back around to where we started. So that is our circle of fifths when it comes to sharps. Now let's take a look at the flats, and we're going to follow the same pattern, except we're going to go down 5 whole steps. So flats are all about down, right? So here we go. We're going to start on the key of C. Again, that's the key that has no sharps or flats. If we go down a fifth, we are on an F. And the key of F has a B flat, which makes sense because battle is the first word in our rhyme when we read it backwards, right? Battle ends and down goes Father Charles. So the first place we land has a B flat. Now if we go down, now we're going to go down 5 from F, and we're going to land on a B. And when we land on the B, we know that this is our second place we've landed. So there's 2 flats, and these 2 flats have to be the first 2 letters in our rhyme. So we've got to keep the ones we've already had. We got to keep the B flat. We're going to add the next flat in our rhyme. So we're going to add in, we've got the battle, we're going to add in the ends, we're going to add in the E flat, and then continue doing the same thing. And just like the sharps, as we continue to go down, the pattern is just going to wrap all the way around. One thing to keep in mind with flats is that every key has the word flat in it except for the very first one, right? The first one is F, and then it's B flat, E flat, and then remember you got the flat in there for every single one after that. Just a little hint for you as we go forward. So we were on our B, and if we go down 5 more, we find out that we're on the key of E, which has 3 flats. and there B flat, E flat, and then the next word in our phrase is an A, so we add on the A flat, and that is our key signature for the key of E flat. Gotta kind of maybe sit down and have to look at this a little bit, kind of get it ingrained in your head, but that's how the circle of fifths work. Sharps, you're gonna start on C and go up 5, and then flats, you're gonna start on the C and go down 5 to find your next key signature. All right, here's our homework for the first week. And in keeping with last year, you'll notice I do not assign every problem that's in the homework. I will give you a sampling of the ones that you need to do, so read carefully, or you're going to be doing way more than you need to. Reason for that is I figure if you can do the ones that I present here to you on your homework, that you have understood the concept. And if you have any trouble with it, I'll send back your graded homework and ask you to do a few more just to make sure that the concept is there, that you're understanding what we're talking about. So don't do more than you need to. Pay attention to what is on your pace chart and your tracking chart. You don't have to write this down. You just need to go to your pace chart and your tracking chart because it will tell you there what homework you need to do. You'll see down here at the bottom, it gives you the website, theory at shaunastudio88.com. Please send your homework there so that I know it's your homework and it doesn't get lost in one of my other email addresses. And also be sure to use in your file name and in your subject line the format that's listed underneath there. I have a lot of students and it makes it much, much easier for me to grade your homework and get it back to you quickly if everyone is following this format. So I appreciate your helping me out with that. The MT stands for music theory. This is level 2. We're in week 1. This is module number 1. It is the key signature review, and then a dash in your name so I know who this is coming from. Last on our list, we have vocabulary, and it's listed here for you. Most of these words: animado, animated, brillante, brilliant, expressivo, expressive, leggerio, light, nimble, and quick, spirituoso, spirited, and tranquillo, quiet or tranquil. Pretty close to the English words, not terrible for starting off here to memorize, but the one you might struggle a little bit with is leggerio. If you know the movies from The Lord of the Rings, I gave you a little hint about how you might be able to tie this together to remember that one. If you know who Legolas is, he's an elf. We always kind of think of elves as being light and nimble and quick and kind of bouncy on their feet, right? So if you can remember that Legolas is leggerio, and that might help clue you into the light, nimble, and quick piece of it for make this week's vocabulary pretty easy. So there you are. We've reached the end of the first module for the first week. And at this point, you can either jump in and do your homework for this particular module, or you can move on to watching the next module and do your homework all at the end. We'll see you next time.